one form is legal and another form is illegal. Like, I can give you a voter registration card, but I can't give you an absentee ballot. I mean, what kind of sense does that make?
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We're going to be talking a little bit about HB 209. If you've been listening the last few weeks, you've heard me go off about this bill. I'm very concerned about this bill. I think it's a bad bill. House Bill 209 would criminalize assistance with the absentee voting process. Anything from giving someone a ride to go pick up an application, much less a ballot, would be criminalized, and you could face a Class D felony charge. And, I just think that's so egregious. In this state, and really everywhere across this country, we should be making it easier to vote. We should be reducing the barriers to voting, not making it harder, and certainly not criminalizing people who are helping folks participate in the election and exercise their constitutional right to vote. I've mentioned on the show before that I was elected political coordinator of my local. Most locals have some similar role. Your state fed, your national, international union has political coordinators, legislative directors, legislative affairs committees. Y'all have voter outreach. Voter outreach is something that our unions do, and that includes absentee voting. A great example would be our trade workers. Let's say you're an iron worker and you're out on a project. You may not be available from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on that particular Tuesday, right? You may be a few hundred miles away from home and therefore need to vote absentee. So this is very directly relevant to the voter outreach that our unions do. But more broadly, it's relevant to working class people in the state of Alabama. Helping our brothers and sisters participate in the election should not risk a felony. And it's so extreme that even groups like the League of Women Voters of Alabama have come out strong in opposition, because the good volunteer work that they do could be criminalized under this legislation. Unfortunately, it's already been passed by the House. It was actually co-sponsored by 42 House Republicans, and it has passed the House, so now it's in the state Senate. So it's, an urgent call to contact your state senators and let them know how you feel about this piece of legislation. And we have some folks today. I actually, earlier this week, put out a statement as a union activist with the Alabama Voting Rights Coalition, and was grateful to work with them. They have been fighting hard against this legislation. There are a lot of groups out there who are fighting against this, a lot of activists, from across the spectrum of political beliefs, priorities in their activism. Just a lot of different folks are in this coalition fighting against it because it's a bad piece of legislation. So I was happy to work with the Alabama Voting Rights Coalition, and they were happy to send us some folks to actually talk about this legislation and how it would impact them. So really looking forward to this conversation. We actually have some guests here this morning who can talk about this bill. So let's just start there. If y'all don't mind, Maddie, introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there. Y'all both introduce yourself, and then I'll give you each a chance to talk about this bill and how it impacts you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. My name is Maddie Minkoff. I just graduated from the University of Alabama this weekend, actually. And
congratulations.
Yeah, that's me.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I work with Greater Birmingham Ministries and Return My Vote, a lot of felony disenfranchisement and voter restoration stuff that I do. Had the pleasure of working with Mr. Clark before. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Awesome.
Thank you, Maddie. Congratulations on graduation and Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
I'm Jay Gregory Clark with Faith in Action, Alabama. We are a multi-faith organization whose mission is to dismantle systemic racism in order to create pathways of opportunity for every Alabamian. We definitely enjoy our relationship with Greater Birmingham Ministries, with the League of Women Voters, and others of the Alabama Voting Rights Coalition, and we agree that House Bill 209 is a horrible, horrible bill.
So let's pick up there. Yeah, why is it so horrible? And talk to us about that. What's your perspective on this bill?
Well, primarily because it's horrible because it criminalizes help.
Mm, mm,
Helping people should never be a crime, and at its core, that's what this is about. It's about making it a crime to help someone participate in the democratic process, and that affects such a large swath of our society. Not only trade workers, as you mentioned, but also our disabled veterans,
mm.
those who are incarcerated but not convicted and do have the right to vote,
Right.
uh, those who face physical disabilities like blindness, who find it to be a challenge to make it to the polls, much less get a ballot that's in Braille. I mean, there's a whole group of people that need help participating in our democratic process, and this bill is a direct assault against every one of them.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's so important. There are so many different types of people in our society. And we have to remember that. Not everyone is like us. Your particular situation is not everybody's situation. So if you're listening, you think, well, I've never voted absentee. There are lots of folks out there in our community where that is, the only option, or in a particular election, it is the best option for them. It's a right to participate in the election. And I'm so glad, Mr. Clark, that you brought up these different groups of people who are impacted. There are disparate impacts here, and it's, particularly the most marginalized in our society that this bill is going to impact. And, Maddie, you have direct volunteer work that's going to be impacted by this legislation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Both of you have brought up like great points about the very specific groups of people that are impacted, and college students are a huge population of people that are so directly impacted by this. At UA, we don't get election day off. If professors want to hold class, they have to hold class. We have to show up. So absentee voting is super, super important for college students. We have, over half of our population is out of state. The other half, they might be from Mobile or Montgomery, somewhere where you can't get to class and get to your home poll in the same day, realistically. And so I work with UA Vote Everywhere, which is a Andrew Goodman Foundation chapter of a voting organization group on campus. And so much of our work is connecting people with resources with voter absentee voting application ballots. We use a service called Turbo Vote that helps students get whatever ballot information, application information they need, have them have a plan to vote. All of that work would potentially be criminalized with this bill. Just something as simple as handing out a ballot that you can download and print for free would be criminalized with this bill, which is just ludicrous to even say out loud.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that also stands out to me is that Alabama is a state that features one of the highest incarceration rates in the nation. Our prisons are unconstitutional. We have a mass over-incarceration crisis in this state. And of all things, we want to criminalize more activity. And like y'all said, it's help. You're literally helping people exercise their rights, and that's going to be criminalized. So, I agree. It is ludicrous, and it's wild to even consider that being serious legislation.
I'm interested in, I don't know if any of y'all have done any lobbying with the legislature, but if you have, I'm interested in what the responses have been from supporters of this bill. Because, presumably they are being, they're being approached by advocates of voting rights and saying, these people have these certain needs, and these are the things that we are doing to meet them, and it is in no way fraudulent. There's, and that's verifiable. And so do either of y'all have any idea what the supporters of this bill, how they're responding to this kind of stuff?
I did witness the debate on the House floor, and Representative Jamie Keel was the spokesperson for the bill, and his argument as to how people could defend themselves, people who were disabled or people who were more marginalized. His argument was that they could rely on the Voting Rights Act of 1965 If they found themselves in legal trouble, if they found themselves in court, then they could rely on the Voting Rights Act to sort of bail them out.
Oh,
And
how
I found that to
reassuring.
be right, right. I have to be prosecuted before, before I get any help here in this
Oh my
situation. But
God.
that was the defense that was given, yeah.
Wow. And so his argument is that, yes, it's potential that even this law contradicts federal law, and that any sane court is going to overturn that because the state can't contradict federal law. And, that's just what you're going to have to hope for.
That was the basic premise of his argument on the House floor. He was challenged by several minority representatives. He was faced with he had to face some sound logic, particularly from Representative Chris England out of Tuscaloosa, who was probably your representative for a while, Maddie, who stated that this is just criminalizing handing over a sheet of paper. I take a sheet of paper and I hand it over to you, and one form is legal and another form is illegal. Like, I can give you a voter registration card, but I can't give you an absentee ballot. I mean, what kind of sense does that make? So his response to that was that we have to protect the democratic process, and that voter fraud is rampant. And so once asked to prove cases of voter fraud in Alabama, he really didn't come up with any evidence. This is Representative Jamie Keel asked for direct evidence of why we need this bill in Alabama, and he did not cite any specific cases outside of one case that happened in his hometown. He said that voter fraud was proven in his hometown, and that race was won basically by a margin of one vote. And if that one vote had not been fraudulently cast, then the outcome would have been different. And I really wanted to jump up and ask him, so is the whole state of Alabama supposed to make a law based off something that happened in your hometown?
Right.
Because
Right.
this is ridiculous. But it was a very fragile defense that Representative Keel offered. And honestly, I don't think it can stand under federal scrutiny.
Right. Well, I mean, even the Republican Secretary of State, John Merrill, he is all over the right-wing radio space in Alabama talking about how secure our elections are. And so the idea that, that there is this need to further tighten Alabama's election security is really contradicted by the Republican Secretary of State, who is very confident in his performance as Secretary of State insofar as fraud.
In general, let's just be in general. He's very confident in general about himself. But yes, you're exactly right for bringing that up, Jacob. I was going to go there. You're right about that. It can't all be true, right?
Right.
Did you have anything else, Jacob?
No.
Okay.
That was.
I just wanted to give y'all a final chance if you had any final words about this legislation that y'all wanted to share with us.
I just wanted to add that, Alabama's absentee voting system is already the most complicated in the country. Like, it just is. And so adding just like another layer of difficulty and confusion, and nobody knows exactly how much help is criminalized. Like, if handing you the application is criminalized, if I show you the link where you can print it yourself, is that criminalized? Like, what? It just is adding so much confusion and fear into a system that's already way more complicated than it has to be. It just doesn't make sense.
That's a really great point.
Absolutely.
Mr. Clark, do you have anything to finish this up?
Well, I think that was a great summary from Maddie. Also, this bill affects the fundability, if you will, of organizations like Greater Birmingham Ministries and Faith in Action Alabama, the League of Women Voters, and others who help people to vote absentee or otherwise to register to vote. We now have funders that can't fund certain activities if they are if they are criminalized. And I think that that's at the heart of what this bill is about, because let's be honest, there are not very many voter fraud police waiting to watch somebody hand over an absentee ballot, right?
Right.
But what it really gets at is the fact that no longer can people receive grant monies or assistance to go into jails or to go onto college campuses and ensure that the voices of the most marginalized people in our society are heard. And I think that is wickedness at a whole nother level.
Oh, I think you just spoke it right there. I think that's exactly what this is about, because let's be honest, these elections aren't even competitive. The Republicans they won by like 20 points minimum in almost every election in November 2022 in the state of Alabama. So I don't think, it's the classic Alabama legislature to have an imaginary problem that they've created out of thin air. And they propose solutions to this imaginary problem that are going to create very real consequences for real people in this state. And it's a total shame. But I really appreciate the work that both of y'all are doing in the community. I appreciate both of what y'all are doing to help people participate in the elections. And thank you so much for your time today to share this with us. And thanks for fighting against this bad bill.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project. And you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.